Hi everyone, it's Costa here. Did you know that this year is the 17th birthday of the Millthorpe Garden Ramble? Over the last 16 years, more than 100 gardens have been open to the public over the last weekend in October for people to come in and wander around through the gardens and get all sorts of great gardening inspiration. Now, in 2020, the committee has made a decision to postpone the open aspect of the Ramble for the safety of the 120 plus volunteers and the open gardeners. So instead, you're still able to be a part of the Millthorpe Garden Ramble because they're taking it online. All you need to do on Saturday the 31st or Sunday the 1st of November, jump online, the Millthorpe Garden Ramble Facebook page or millthorpevillage.com.au, and each of the open gardens will be presented as a video so that you'll be able to get all of that great garden inspiration and design ideas from the gardens and the gardeners. So mark those dates in your diary, and of course, more importantly, mark that last weekend of October 2021 so that we can all get down there and support this event next year. Thanks for supporting everyone, and I look forward to seeing you over the weekend online. Can't wait. See ya. Bye.
Hi, I'm Sophie Reynolds and welcome to our garden.
And I'm Bruce Reynolds. Welcome to Foxfield, our 6 acres of wonderful garden here near Millthorpe.
I love that you feel like you're walking through one of those big public parks that I grew up with in Tasmania, with the big deciduous trees and lots of shady areas, and you can choose to be in the sun if you want to and just enjoy yourself like you're having a picnic in the park.
And it's the variety of plants that we've got here. We've got something flowering 12 months of the year. So even in the middle of winter, on the coldest day, we have plants flowering through to the middle of summer. We have something different. So we've tried to create a whole variety so that there's light and shade in this garden. So it's not just pure greenery or trees, but there's flower gardens, and there are also a lot of trees and a lot of established trees that we've been able to establish here since this garden was first constructed about 25 years ago.
One of the big challenges is to make sure through the heat of summer that you're able to maintain it. We do have to do some extra watering. We do have a bore for that, but we try to make sure that the watering is only usually about once every 10 days for each area of the garden, even though we might be watering every night, so that the roots don't get too shortened and that they can put up with a bit of tough conditions. And the other thing is we've got to keep it on top of the weeds that blow in from the surrounding countryside. Yeah.
So there's also birds are a challenge. We love to have birds in this garden, but particularly our fruit trees, we've got a net. Everything from our blueberries through to our cherry trees, if we don't net, we don't get any crop at all. So we're living with nature and the birds, and we love to have them in our garden. We also do have some pest birds as well that come in, blackbirds and other birds that were introduced, but we have a lot of natives here, and what we've tried to do again is with plantings, we've planted some native, like grevilleas that are currently flowering at the moment, and that does attract a lot of bird life and insect life too. So we've tried to complement the garden, whether it's the waratahs or the grevillea, to sort of have natural food and a natural habitat for the bird life, as well as the eucalypts that we've planted, etc. So we've tried to match our, I suppose you could say, production system, being our fruit trees, with our gardens, our ornamental gardens here as well. Maintaining them, I suppose, is another big challenge, as in 6 acres is a lot of area to look after, and mowing and weeding. And as Sophie said, we get a lot of weeds, both blow-ins and what's in the soil, because as the old adage goes, 1 year of seed is 7 years of weed. So as in what we're living with is what could have flowered 6 or 7 years ago. So we've tried to undertake a lot of weed management and tried to reduce. You're never going to eradicate weeds. And also frosts is another challenge here on the Millthorpe Plateau. We actually had a -3 frost in September, and that did a lot of damage even to the roses, but also the fruit trees. We lost a lot of the peaches that were flowering, as in they just shriveled up with the frost. So on some of those years you can actually get really bad and big frosts where we're located here, but again, a lot of the plants do recover and come back to produce again, but flowering fruit crops generally don't. So they're some of the challenges that we do encounter here. So some of the features from my point of view are that we've got a wide range of irises, we've got a wide range of daffodils. So from July on, we've got colour in this garden. Tulips, again, a huge number of different colours of tulips, ranunculus, anemones, and bulbs. So, from the grape hyacinths through to a heap of different bulbs that come up, and they come up at different times of the year, and all of a sudden you'll get a blaze of pink in one of our garden beds, or blues, or yellows, or oranges. And so that's just sort of, as in the surprise of coming out and seeing something different that's just popped up overnight. It's there and eventually going to come up, but just to see it in full bloom, just sort of, so it's a colourful garden, but also walking in amongst the trees too, particularly in the middle of summer, just to have such beautiful big deciduous trees, most of them, but not all. We've tried to have a balance again with a few evergreens, but given our climate, you want most of the trees here to be deciduous so that you can get some sunlight in during the winter months and try and get a little bit of warmth back into the garden. But again, it's very much focused on a cold climate deciduous garden, and it sort of rolls throughout the year. And again, with the vegetables, we have different vegetables for nearly 12 months of the year, and fruit during the summer and autumn months of the year.
I think one of the things I also like is there's particular vistas that you can get in certain areas of the garden. When I'm standing at the kitchen sink, there's a vista that I can get through the hedging that's in the back there that looks across the countryside to one of the farm dams. It's just beautiful. We're in the garden ramble because we love our garden and we like sharing it with people, and we think we're very proud of it and the amount of work that goes into it, and we just like sharing it.
Hi, we're Arthur and Melissa. We live at 2 Hawke Street in Millthorpe, the blacksmith's cottage, and this is our garden. The first two things that started with the garden were the roses. Melissa loves roses and wanted rose beds, and the olives at the back. They were put in quite some time ago, simply as a screen. From there it's developed to where we're at now, which is still in progress, formalising it a little bit more hedging, which is me, more flowers, which is Melissa. And what we're building up the back here is a pleached hedge around the top of the garden using Chanticleer pears. You can see the canes, and they're simply to stretch the pears out to eventually join up with one another and create the hedge. The way we've designed it is we both have a love of old gardens, formal and informal, so we've tried to encapsulate some of the aspects of old formal gardens and shrink them down, if you will, into what we have here. So we've got a nice little north-facing garden. There are a lot of formal straight lines, and then there are a lot of open, looser plantings. The roses are just coming on. They end up spilling over and onto the lawn and that sort of thing. So it's really been motivated by that sort of structure. Also, the other thing we have is we try to create rooms within rooms. It's only a small garden, so you can see the rose garden, then you go up the back and there's a hellebore garden with behind the box balls, and around the back of the shed there's a small maple garden underplanted with azaleas that we're slowly developing. The two main things that Melissa loves is tulips in spring and bulbs, so copper pots, terracottas, classic garden urns, I guess you'd say, and the rose gardens. The one behind us are all David Austin roses. The ones on the other side are a couple of climbers and all hybrid teas. One of the next projects is an arbour between the two, and the yellow Graham Thomas climbing rose will tumble over the top of that to complete the rose gardens. The structure of the garden is mainly twofold. I like the architecture, so the straight lines and the volumes, whereas Melissa prefers the flowers. She's an intuitive gardener. She'll see something and say, let's do this, and invariably it always works. But she likes the softer edges. She likes a lot of flower, a lot of colour, and the two seem to juxtapose one another quite nicely.
Hello, I'm Eileen, and I'd like to welcome you to our garden here at Valdemar Millthorpe on this very windy day. The house here was built in 1938 and includes large established trees from that time. My husband Duncan has been a farmer here for 40 years. However, when we moved into the house here 13 years ago, there really wasn't much of a garden, as the house had been empty for quite some time. This is our first year in the Millthorpe Garden Ramble. We enjoy going to the Ramble every year, and this year we thought we'd like to give back by sharing our garden with others. The first thing we did when we moved into the house was remove the old pine trees along the side of the house. They were replaced with a protostrum hedge, birch trees and a garden bed. I've added a couple of more small beds recently in the front garden and a hedge of orange blossoms along the front veranda. Our first plantings were show quality daffodils that we had inherited, and I have been adding to the bed ever since with different varieties. We lost a number of the older trees during last winter storms, so I've been in the process of replacing those in the front garden. The Manchurian pear has been replaced with a Japanese maple, and several blossom trees have been replaced also. We had a plan made up for the courtyard, which consists of a fountain, old style paving, a 50-metre rock containing wall, box hedges and brick edges. Last year we added a freestanding rock wall to the western end of the courtyard, tall enough to keep the farm stock out. We also have the original meat house, which we find very useful at times. This year Duncan planted canola out the front of our property, which has added a lot of interest from the general public. Many people have been stopping and taking photos. It has been 50 years since it was last planted here at Valdemar, as is not usually grown in our cold climate. We have been lucky to travel to Japan a couple of times, so this has led me to create a Japanese-inspired garden. The large volcanic rocks were already here naturally, so I have been working around them, adding various plants, maples and a stone path representing water flow. It's still very new and a work in progress with more planting to be done. My daughter likes water features, and one summer she decided she wanted to have running water. So she dug out this pond by hand in 35-degree heat, then added the rocks, the fish, the plants and a solar water pump to run the water. Well, we have a few rustic features here, one being our wood pile. I just wanted to tidy up the pile because it looked a bit messy, and then my daughter constructed this circle arrangement and it actually looks quite good. The other feature is our rustic chook house. My husband built the chook house from the recycled tin from our roof for our chooks. It was only finished last week.
I'm Sue Marsh and we're at 2 Springvale Lane, just on the northern side of Millthorpe. We're sitting on 35 acres of a lifestyle block. The house was only built 4 years ago and it was built in a sheep paddock and there was nothing, just grass. So everything you see, barring the odd gum tree, has been planted within those last 4 years. We're very, very fortunate that we're, like a lot of this area, of course, sitting on basalt soil. And if you can happen to see Mount Canobolas in the background, for those of maybe people watching from a long way away who aren't aware, it was once an active volcano many, many, many years ago, millennia ago, and because of it, we've gone very deep basalt soil, which is just amazing. It holds water, it's very rich, it allows the paddocks to stay green much longer than you normally find in lots of parts of New South Wales, which is really wonderful. So that was a big plus. I guess the features of the garden are the hedges, and they of course create little rooms around the house, and those hedges, because we started with a blank canvas, as I said, we had to put in things that were going to be pretty robust. It's quite windy here, it can be, plus of course we have to deal with heat and drought increasingly, and we get pretty good frosts because we have brilliant seasons in Millthorpe, as all of us locals know. So we planted a lot of, we managed to be very careful in our plant selection, and a lot of the things that we've selected have thrived, which is fantastic. Yeah, well, we don't actually do anything on any true primary production scale, but what we do is grow a lot of our own fruit and vegetables. So right off the side of the house there's a very accessible kitchen garden, and then out further from that there's a few perennial beds with rhubarb, asparagus, which is fabulous at the moment, and that goes on to big summer plantings because we have such a short growing season here, where the cucumbers and pumpkins and tomatoes and zucchini all get growing, but of course it's too early for them round here yet. So in the meantime, I'm very lucky to have my own potting shed that is half greenhouse, and in that I grow lots of things from seed, and at the moment we've got a great supply of various sorts of lettuce and also some tomatoes. My husband's seriously hoping to have the first Millthorpe tomatoes, but I'm sure there'll be some other greenhouse devotees in the village who might beat us to it.
My name is John Mason, and we are happy to be part of the virtual Millthorpe Garden Ramble for 2020. This little property is 15 Pym Street, and it used to be the home of Miss Bennett, who was rather famous in Millthorpe in the 70s, 80s and 90s. She had polio and lived a very full and wonderful life. In the years since, it's been a fancy restaurant and a pizza shop and all sorts of things. In about early 90s, the Methodist Church from Forest Reefs was brought in and plonked in the back of the block, and it's been all sorts of things in the years in between. It's been a spiritual centre, a residence, and an art shop at different times. It's a lovely area in the back, and the shops at the front have been in continual use as either restaurants, pizza shops, or plants and pretty things at the moment. A lovely block, and it's been a welcome place for people to live over the years. Number 8 Pym Street, where we live, was built in the 1890s. It was when we bought it, it was about 30 years ago. It was a bit of a decrepit building. Part of it was, in the old days, it was a Red Cross hall, and the rest of it was probably a gentleman's club, we would describe it today. So there was a barber shop and a billiard hall, and there was a flat up the top. The garden we rather made from scratch, and it's a very peaceful little place when Millthorpe gets busy, as it often does. So welcome to a peek behind Pym. I guess in a little garden, what you're trying to do is organise a way to get in and out. So you need a roadway, you usually need a garage. You've got to worry about where, in the old days, where the septic tank was, and now the sewer. So it's a matter of finding some little artistic space in amidst all of that. It's a nice little spot, and finding a bit of north facing is important, and knowing what will look good as a plant to have is a skill I don't have, but luckily we've just adapted the good bones that have been here to make the place livable and fun. The Camellia japonica is the one that we've really done quite well with. They quite like the south facing and plenty of water, and also hellebores. Our hellebores will last until really about Christmas Day. So they like that little sheltered spot, and with the cool nights in Millthorpe, the hellebores seem to do very well. Other than that, I only know 2 plants. One is an iris and the other one is a gum tree. So that's the limit of my knowledge.
Welcome to the Fitzroy. My name is Pip. This garden is part of a historic property that was actually built in 1840 by a man by the name of John McKenna. And it has gone on for many generations from there with many owners, and it also has a listed historic garden with it. Behind me we have this amazing, incredible holly tree, which was planted around that time, that period as well. A lot of the garden has actually got a lot of wonderful English style trees and plants and various different things, and a lot of old fruit trees, including apricots, quinces. The highlights, I think it comes through from the entrance. Since I've moved here, I've actually incorporated a really beautiful wrought iron automatic gate and fence. So coming through, you actually come into this section here, which is the front, with the holly tree, which is the main highlight of this area. The beautiful old lilac, which is growing there. And it really fits in very well with the buildings, with the beautiful blue stone stables, the house itself. And then you walk through to the courtyard, which has got this lovely fountain. And during the summer months, we've got beautiful grapes that are growing that are all over the pergola. And then you go around to the eastern side of the house, which was the original entrance to the house. And 2 previous owners actually decided to enclose the veranda. But you've got this beautiful pond, which has got water lilies in there, and water irises as well, and there's irises growing all at the moment, and they're about to come out in bloom, which is beautiful. And it sort of goes around in a big circle, so it's a really very special place. There's lots of little pockets with it, and up the back part of the garden too is a very special section where was the old original outhouse. I'm very fortunate that 2 previous owners put in a bore, and so I've had the bore running but during the drought it was really touch and go, because a lot of the bores are running out of water at the moment, and until we ended up having all this beautiful rain in the last 6 months really. So it was constant watering, and that's what happens. I mean, I'm lucky I don't have to survive on just rainwater. Another part of this front garden too is the old well, which you can't see because it's all covered up underneath the ground, and this is the tower for the tank. And during the autumn months is a beautiful creeper that goes, it's called a Virginia creeper, and it comes out in these most magnificent colourful leaves in autumn. So the garden has something to offer all year round, whether it's summer, winter when it's snowing here, it's just so magical. The red berries come out in the holly tree. Spring at the moment, we've got lots of beautiful tulips. We're at Willowdale, Millthorpe, and this is our garden of Roy and Rosemary Reed. We've been here for 26 years. We started with a bare paddock and we planted trees around the outside, and then I worked on a design of what I wanted to have in the garden, what key features I wanted, what trees I wanted, and then we worked around lots of old farm machinery because that's our background, or my husband's background is in farming, so that's how we've set up our garden. We like to have areas of rooms, but also lots of open space, because when we came here we had 2 young children and we just wanted to have a lot of areas where they could kick a ball and hit a tennis ball and that sort of thing. The main features are probably built around the old machinery. We started the roundabout out the front and planted roses around an old combine, and then the combine has had various lots of just quick flowering, pots of colour just to give it a bit of colour through the summer, springtime. Other areas we put some big trees in just to give us a little bit of wind protection, and then we put more farm machinery into those areas, including an old dray that came from my husband's sister's farm, which is at the back of Canberra. So areas other than that, the veggie patch, the outback shed, and then another feature probably is an area that we built with the old wheels and made an archway and grew wisteria over it. So another feature of old machinery reused. Well, this year I think the tulips have done really well. I have put tulips in pots for the first time. I'm not really a pot person. I actually have what I call a fairly water-wise garden, so I hardly water the veggie patch when we need to, but other than that don't really water. So the tulips are a feature at the moment, but I actually really love Japanese maples. So I've got quite a few of those. I've got the miniatures and these standards here that are just, I love them now and I love them in the winter. They're just a beautiful tree to look at. So I have been in the Garden Ramble twice before. One was when the garden was very new, so it was just really trees and things that were a little bit newer. Lots of bulbs and lots of sort of colour like that. And then it was about 5 years after that, so it's been a few years. I've always enjoyed it actually. Last time we had someone here catering and that was a lot of fun. We had lots of people sitting around really enjoying the time in the garden, which I really enjoyed that too. I like talking to people.